This is the submarine USS Silversides, commissioned 1 week after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. It was christened and launched in August 1941. It would eventually become one of the most aggressive submarines in World War II, ranking third in enemy ships sunk. The war stories of the crews and commanders of the USS Silversides 236 are what legends are made of. This was recognized by a Presidential Unit citation for outstanding performance in combat during her 4th, 5th, 7th, and 10th war patrols in enemy Japanese-controlled waters, daring in her tactics and tenacious in the face of particularly hazardous conditions. The USS Silversides tracked her targets with relentless aggression. In audacious defiance of heavy enemy escorts and air opposition, she boldly penetrated hostile screens to launch her torpedoes, striking repeatedly at every quarter with devastating results to the Japanese in the destruction of 24 ships and extensive damage to 12 additional vessels. Her exceptional skill in evading severe depth charge attacks and her intrepid fulfillment of perilous missions necessary to defeat a fiercely determined foe attest the superb combat readiness of her gallant officers and men. After the war, the Silversides laid to rest in the waters of Lake Michigan near Chicago. Then, after 40 years, the prestigious vessel was moved to the waters of Muskegon, Michigan, where it now rests. Now, instead of the barking of war commands and weary seamen passing through the lengths of the vessel, you may see and hear the curious excitement of scouting groups, or a tourist discovering what it may have been like aboard a fighting World War II submarine. Michigan Magazine was welcomed aboard the USS Silversides by Robert G. Morin Sr., chairman of the board of the USS Silversides and Maritime Museum, and Mike Hollowell, submarine veteran and volunteer worker of the Silversides, who took us on a guided tour. We are in what, the forward torpedo room?
We are in the forward torpedo room, yes.
My goodness, the size of these torpedoes, could you tell me the range or some specifics about this?
These torpedoes are, they weigh about over 3,000 pounds. 666 pounds of the nose is the fire, or the TNT, or whatever they use for explosive. They're about 22 feet long and 21 inches in diameter, and these are steam-driven torpedoes, and they're made such that when alcohol that they used to burn, then they spray water with it, and as they leave the tube by air pressure, that kicks a little trigger right there, and instantly they developed about 400 horsepower.
My goodness, and they're all fed through that tube there. That's the way they'd shoot them out.
There's 6 tubes forward and 4 tubes aft.
We have tubes in the back,
yeah,
too. Whoa.
Plus they store 16 torpedoes in here, and along with the 16 torpedoes, when they get ready to go on a run, they had 16 men also sleep in here around these torpedoes.
Ah, so the men who were responsible for the torpedoes, they were right here. When they needed them, they were here.
Right.
All right, let's head on into the other parts of the submarines. Okay. To be able to walk the length of one of the most lethal submarines of World War II is a very impressive experience. A hands-on experience that carries with it a sense of awe. You are there. You become a part of history. You touch it. You feel the tension in the airtight chambers that must have existed on the attack missions, where young men knew they were looking death straight in the eyes. The Silversides, in her illustrious career, recorded one fatality, that of torpedoman Mike Harbin, who died during a battle surface engagement. Another near fatality occurred when on April 4th, 1942, on the way to Hawaii, radioman striker Sam Remington was standing lookout when the order to take her down came. Remington had tied his thongs of the binoculars to the A-frame. He didn't make it to the hatch before it was sealed. The Silversides began to dive, with him still topside. But his calls for help had been heard over the bridge telephone, and the sub quickly returned to the surface. No one on the Silversides loitered topside after that. One of the most unique events of the sub's history occurred in this room. Shortly after the ship left Brisbane, George Platter had an acute attack of appendicitis, and it was evident that an operation was imperative. In spite of the limited facilities available, the operation was ably performed by pharmacist mate Tom Moore on December 22, 1942. No complications developed, even when the patient was thrown out of his bunk in a depth charge attack shortly after the operation.
Tom actually took the appendix out on this table.
On this actual table?
And we still have that appendix in a bottle, by the way.
We do? On the Silversides?
No, not on the Silversides. It's put away in the safe, but it will be in the museum.
But this was the boardroom, was it? Or what was it?
This was the officer's wardroom. This is where the officers ate.
This is where they ate.
This was their dining room.
Special privileges. Okay. Let's head on down, see what else we can see here. This is the captain's quarters here.
Well,
this is a private room. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the captain's
Suite all of his own here.
all of his own, all the luxuries of captain's privileges, right? Okay, we got a bunk. We've got probably a direct link to someone.
Okay, this is the control room. This is the nerve center of the submarine.
Okay.
This is where most of the operations were handled right here. Over in this corner here, those valves there is what they call a trim manifold. This here is what they call a Christmas tree. Before you could dive, this had to be all green. There were 6 people up on the bridge as lookouts, and an officer and a quartermaster. They'd have to come down in about 10 seconds and have that hatch closed.
Through the expertise of submarine veteran Mike Hollowell and volunteers just like him, you'll actually experience, as we did, along with the scouts from Bolingbrook, Illinois, a chapter of American history from a unique perspective. It was volunteers that restored the Silversides to its current condition, including operational engines and facilities to allow the sub to be used by the public for special events, including sleepovers by the scouts and special groups.
There was a lot of restoration. They'd done a lot of work in Chicago. I think during the Vietnam War, the thing actually had sunk in Chicago, so there was a lot of deterioration. And I'll give them credit. They did a lot of work on it. We've done a lot of work. And it's been just thousands and thousands of hours of volunteer work. To pay for what's been done on this ship would be prohibitive. It's just men like Mike Hollowell here, and I just couldn't go on to name the thousands of hours of people that come in and volunteer their time.
Actual volunteers who help out bring the heritage to life here in the Muskegon area.
The engines were redone by a group from Chicago. We have electrical work done by a gentleman from Lansing. Plus we have people from the atomic power plant. We have people driving in from Chicago, from Indiana. Volunteers that come in and spend their weekends here, and this is what makes it possible and gets it to the shape it's in.
In 1986, the USS Silversides was designated a National Historic Landmark by the National Park Service of the U.S. Department of Interior. Bob went on to tell us that from March 1st to April 24th of this year, a total of 597 Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and church groups have stayed overnight. Last year's attendance was in excess of 35,000 visitors, with overnight stay of over 4,000. Michigan Magazine salutes the board of directors, staff, and volunteers of the USS Silversides SS236 in Muskegon, Michigan, for the dedication and perseverance in preserving our American heritage for all to appreciate and experience.